we're going to have to work out, are there going to be some standardizations of batteries, not just in one auto manufacturer, but across several? Will there be specialist battery manufacturers, or will the automotive companies want to retain that control in-house, because it will become very critically important to their brand?
Yeah, no, I think if you look at sort of what Tesla's done, over the last 10 years, the battery has been a key focus for them, because they realize, okay, they have grand plans and they're going to get very big, but again, they're competing against Toyota, GM, Volkswagen, who have, tens of millions of car units. So, the scale of those businesses is always going to give them some advantage. So they realize the one component in the electric vehicle, which is unique to the electric vehicle, is that battery component. So they need to get, as far ahead of everyone else on the scale curve and on the product development curve to try and keep 2 steps ahead of the giant elephants who could come in and squash them if they get any different. So that's why, again, right out of the gate, he was talking about a gigafactory, and you think, oh, they sell 1,000 cars. Why is he building a plant to supply batteries for 50,000 cars? It's because he realizes he needs to always stay ahead of everyone else on the scale curve. Again, like everything else, if you look at all the key components of the automotive, you will end up with a handful of winners who will become the main battery component suppliers. And again, for the big companies, they don't make much of their cars anyways. They just assemble them, right? And they rely on their partners to build the various components. So I think you'll have a few electric vehicle specialists who will, again, maintain control over as much of the supply chain as possible. And then for all the other car companies, there'll be 4 or 5 key battery supplier winners, who will provide most of the batteries for, all of the cars globally.
I want to know more really about this, because there's so many sort of derivatives and spin-offs, and there's going to be end-of-life battery recycling requirements. All the the people who maintain your cars and your fleets, if you've got a corporate fleet, you're going to have to be battery experts rather than engine experts. It's a real big change to society and the way that we behave, because it's hopefully cleaner fuel, but there's also going to be a lot of new industries spinning up as a result. It's absolutely fascinating. We should talk about what's happening out there in the world of mining, because this is all very interesting, talking about batteries in the future and so forth. But us investors want to make some money, and we want to see what's happening. We've talked about your project, your business model, about getting to market quickly. You've kind of got a very accelerated time frame, but there are, and we'll talk about that another time as well. But it's you've identified a model that's going to work for you during one of the during the cycle. So, but I want to talk about some of the some M&A activity which has been happening in the market. I think BHP and Oz Minerals have been busy, but it seemingly doesn't look that exciting. But it probably is. Well, it's low grade nickel. Is that interesting?
Yes. Oh no. I mean, again, it's fascinating. So, again, for context, BHP spent most of the 2010s trying to sell their nickel business. In fact, in the early 2010s, the rumor on the street was, they were negotiating with the buyer for the payment that BHP would have to pay them to take the asset and assume the large environmental liability that was in place. That was how much BHP didn't like nickel back, a decade ago. Fast forward, and you now have the CEO talking about it, and to their credit, they're putting their money where their mouth is. So, 3 years ago, their Mount Keith was sort of the template for the large low grade mining operation. It opened in 1995 and has been running, all during that time period, but it's coming to the end of its life. And they spent money about 3 years ago to open up a second deposit nearby, and so they're going to maintain production out of that operation. And again, it's a fraction of the sexy high grade core that you see in a lot of places. And what was fascinating in the past 2 weeks, I did not expect it this quickly in the cycle, but BHP Billiton bought another large. There's two of the better low grade nickel sulfide assets in Australia, and both of them are now gone. So BHP just bought a project called Honeymoon Well from Norilsk. They didn't disclose the price tag. I know, again, 10 years ago, rumor on the street was, they were looking in for around, $100 million in that kind of dollar range. So I don't know if we'll be able to see from anybody's financial statements whether it shows up in a note somewhere. But the second one, which was sort of a clear market one, was Oz Minerals has a joint venture with a company called Cassini Resources for the Nebo Babel deposit. This was discovered in 2000 by WMC and has been advanced. It's in a more remote location, which again, if you're going to build a low-grade operation, is tough because you need a lot of infrastructure and capacity to process that material. But yeah, they paid $75 million, roughly Australian, for the 30% of the project that Cassini owns. So that put a $250 million price tag, on that asset. And I think valued it kind of 0.3 to 0.4 times NAV of the pre-feasibility study that they had done on the project. So again, we're just getting started in the nickel space, and Oz Minerals has made several smart deals over a time period. So it's nice to see smart money starting to pick up nickel assets, this early in the story. So I think it bodes well in terms of what might be coming down the pipe.